I obviously can't comment on a live police investigation, you would know that. But again, I just reiterate and emphasise it's so important for me not to comment on a live police investigation and be seen to prejudice that in any way, shape or form.
But I tend to work on the premise that somebody is innocent until proven guilty.
So I think we're far past the point where Nicola Sturgeon, for example, has to account for her husband's actions. Now, Peter has been questioned, as we know, under caution. That's a serious matter, of course. But as I've already said, I don't think there's any reason whatsoever for Nicola Sturgeon to even consider resigning from the party.
This all goes back, actually, 2 years since the first resignation of the chairman, of the treasurer. And since then, there's been quite a few resignations, but not a single person has been disciplined or asked to stand aside by the party. And that's quite extraordinary. Are you prepared to make people resign or sack them if they've done the wrong thing?
Of course, if we get to that place, then I will look at whatever powers I have as leader of the party. But what I can do, what I won't do, is preempt a live police investigation. I've got to allow that to take its course, run its course. And then, of course, the full facts will be made known in a very public manner, I suspect. Then.
Andrew Marr said it is extraordinary that no one has been disciplined or asked to leave the party over the last 2 years. This, of course, was with reference to the referendum fund scandal and is an implied criticism of Nicola Sturgeon. He then asks Humza Yousaf, is he prepared to make wrongdoers resign or sack them? Yousaf's answer indicates that only those found guilty of a crime will face disciplinary action. Yousaf's stance on this could mean that no one will be held accountable for the biggest scandal in Scottish politics. It means that the extraordinary situation that Andrew Marr mentioned, of no one being held to account, will carry on into the distant future. It could mean that Nicola Sturgeon will never be held to account for the disaster she presided over and did nothing about. His excuse that he can't instigate disciplinary proceedings because that would preempt a live police investigation, and he has therefore got to allow the police investigation to run its course, is nonsense. Any human resource professional would confirm that it is nonsense because companies routinely will conduct disciplinary proceedings that also involve police investigation. This is particularly the case when the matter is internal misconduct and the continuing employment of a person could damage the company. These formal disciplinary processes only apply to employees. The SNP has internal disciplinary procedures to deal with members who break party rules or otherwise bring the party into disrepute. The sheer scale of disrepute afflicting the SNP should have led to Yousaf instigating an investigation to root out those responsible. There has been serious ethical and governance failures. The simple reason he did nothing is that an investigation would expose Sturgeon's part in it and her gross negligence. The matter being sub judice means that you cannot make comments that could interfere with the course of justice. This could include traducing someone's reputation. In this respect, I criticise Nicola Sturgeon only insofar that she did nothing to stem the disrepute and showed no sign whatsoever that she understood that this scandal was damaging the SNP's moral authority. These failures are not criminal, but her negligence should be investigated and subject to sanction by the party. The strict liability contempt rule only applies if there is a substantial risk that the course of justice will be seriously impeded or prejudiced. I shall be arguing that there has never been a penny in a ring-fenced fund and that the SNP have lied that there was a ring-fenced fund. These are undisputable facts evidenced from SNP accounts and pronouncements. My assertions cannot be prejudicial as they cannot be argued as false in a criminal trial or appeal. This blog is not about the legality of the SNP's ring-fenced appeals. Instead, this blog is about how to restore the SNP's moral authority and regain the trust of the electorate. The scandal has severely undermined trust in the party of government. Dire electoral consequences are predicted, consequences that will not just affect the SNP, but also the wider independence movement. The party's leadership are entirely to blame for the loss of the SNP's moral authority. They have behaved unethically. They are liars and hypocrites. They are an embarrassment to Scotland. The only way to restore the public's trust is for the public to see the SNP putting their house in order. This means wrongs being righted and wrongdoing investigated. Later, I'll compare the differences in scope and proof required in a disciplinary investigation, as compared to a criminal prosecution, and in particular, questions that Humza Yousaf is allowing Nicola Sturgeon to avoid. Irrespective of the legality of the SNP's referendum appeal, it was still an unethical breach of trust for the SNP not to fulfill their promise to ring-fence donations, and then subsequently to lie that there was a ring-fenced fund. This is the root cause of the loss of the SNP's once vaunted moral authority. It is an absolute disgrace that 7 years after the 2016 St. Andrew's Day launch of the referendum appeal, the SNP are still in denial of any wrongdoing and are still lying to the donors. The SNP are refusing to refund donations, and the reason given is as per this statement.
We are not refunding people for donations that they have made. People make donations to the party because they want to advance the cause of independence. Every pound and penny we spend as the party will be in advancing the cause of independence.
Before revealing who made this statement, would you consider it a lie if the person who made this statement had full knowledge that all donations had been spent instead of being used to build a fund to fight a future referendum campaign?
Let me ask you something which isn't involved in the police investigation. This whole thing was about £600,000 or thereabouts, raised from SNP supporters and SNP members for an second IndyRef referendum. If there isn't a second referendum in, say, the next year, will you hand the money back to them?
Well, first of all, the £600,000 is part of the police investigation, hence why it would be very dangerous for me to comment on it, but it's very much a focus, as has been made public by the police. So that is a focus of the police investigation. Look, money that is raised from the membership by the party, we're going to spend that on advancing the cause of independence, referendum.
So they're not going to get the money back?
Look, again, we're not reimbursing people for the donations that they have made. People make donations to the party because they want to advance the cause of independence. Every pound and penny they spend, that we spend, as a party, will be on advancing the cause of independence. People make donations to the party because they want to advance the cause of independence. Every pound and penny they spend, that we spend, as a party, will be on advancing the cause of independence.
This is a fallacious argument. The premise that donations were simply to advance the cause of independence is false. The conclusion that there is no need to refund donations has no basis. If the person making that statement simply lacked knowledge of the truth, it would be misleading, but not a lie. Yousaf knows the truth. He knows donations were procured on the basis that they would not be spent on simply advancing the cause of independence, but instead put into a ring-fenced fund, a war chest, to fight a future independence referendum. A lie is the deliberate intent to deceive or mislead by providing false information or withholding the truth. Yousaf did both, and therefore, he is a liar. Consider this. If, as Yousaf asserts, donations were made simply to advance the cause of independence, then there would have been no justification for complaints, no police investigation, no disrepute and loss of moral authority. For all his talk of not wanting to cause prejudice, he does not seem to realize that what he has said could cast doubt on the validity of complaints to police. Worse than that, his lying is misleading and disrespecting everyone who donated to that fund. 3 weeks prior to this interview, Yousaf was asked similar searching questions by ITN's Peter Smith.
Can people trust that money they give the SNP will be used as intended?
Absolutely they can trust that the money that they give to the SNP will of course be spent how we advertise it.
You've been briefed on the finances, has that always been the case?
Well look, again, I've been briefed on the finances, but I couldn't comment on the live police investigation.
So you can't guarantee that money given to the SNP for the purposes of a future referendum hasn't been spent on other matters?
I can guarantee you that any penny and any pound that is donated to the SNP is spent, of course, on furthering the cause of independence.
And here is Sturgeon lying about the purpose of donations in June 2021.
We don't hold separate accounts. We're under no legal requirement to do that. Our accounts are managed on a cash flow basis, but every penny we raise to support the campaign for independence will be spent on the campaign for independence.
So there we have it. Yousaf is telling the same lie as Sturgeon. The fact that he is prepared to do so tells you why Sturgeon and her Praetorian Guard were so keen to see him elected leader. By stating that donations could simply be spent in advancing independence. Both of them are lying. Both of them are misleading donors. Both of them are unethical, causing disrepute and loss of trust. The SNP have made media statements that there was a ring-fenced fund. They have emailed donors saying they had a ring-fenced fund. All lies, just like this one, broadcast on national television in October 2021.
There has been obviously a complaint about money that was given to the Scottish National Party, which is still available for an independence campaign from accounts which have been properly accounted for and given to the Electoral Commission. So,
Due to the extent of lies told to donors, there is a clear moral case for refunding donations and apologising. There is also a practical case for refunding, because under proceeds of crime legislation, the SNP are liable to lose those funds if there is a successful prosecution. Moreover, if the Procurator Fiscal decides to prosecute, the amount becomes a contingent liability that must be recorded in their accounts. This could have an impact on the SNP's status as a going concern. The SNP's broken promise to ring-fence donations meant that, despite all the talk of referendums in the last 7 years, they would not have had the finance to fight a referendum. The same could be said for the foreseeable future. As I have highlighted many times, the real reason for the referendum appeal was to stave off bankruptcy. The irony is that bankruptcy is now a very real prospect. Surely it is time for the SNP to get this monkey off their back by refunding donors. But how, if the SNP don't have the money? Between Westminster and Holyrood, the SNP have 106 members of Parliament. Those MPs and MSPs should fund repayment in full, or make up any shortfall. If they paid an average of £6,000, it would raise £636,000. They are well paid and can afford it. They should pay because by doing nothing to bring the leadership to book, they are complicit in this scandal. They are not stupid. The goings-on have been well reported by Wings Over Scotland and the media. I have spelt out to them the wrongdoing, disrepute and legal jeopardy in a dossier and video blogs. If they want to have a chance at the next election, of saving their sorry asses, they need to stump up to refund donations, and also ensure that those who made this mess are held to account. As I explained earlier, a police investigation and arrests are not a barrier to possible disciplinary proceedings and sanctions. When police are investigating fraud, it would not just be normal, but absolutely essential that an organization conducts its own investigation. Those under police investigation should have been suspended, pending an SNP internal investigation. And to be clear, this does not mean asking someone to resign, it means suspension, because an investigation might lead to disciplinary proceedings.
But I tend to work on the premise that somebody is innocent until proven guilty.
Yousaf's argument of innocent until proven guilty is a cynical smokescreen to cover him for not suspending anyone. Nicola Sturgeon is the sacred cow he is protecting from the scrutiny of an internal investigation. Whilst innocent until proven guilty might be a fair and laudable approach in dealing with potential misconduct external to the SNP, it is nothing short of an unethical, hypocritical abdication of his responsibility to restore trust in the SNP.
The candidate wants Humza Yousaf to take decisive action along the lines she proposed during the campaign.
If I became the leader, I would be going straight into HQ, I'd be opening the books, I'd be getting to the bottom of what was going on, because obviously lots of rumours were swirling around at the time about what was going on. And if there was any substance to those rumours, careers would be being ended. And if there wasn't any substance to it, we can draw a line under that and move on.
We now know Yousaf didn't take decisive action. He is not a leader. He is a weak follower, a Sturgeon cultist sycophant, advocated by a whole bunch of Sturgeon's toadies. He did nothing because an investigation into possible wrongdoing and causes of disrepute would inevitably mean Sturgeon facing a lot of awkward questions. He has done nothing to restore trust. He has failed to put political distance between the SNP and those under police investigation. The worst of this scandal has still to come, and he has failed to mitigate the damage that it will do. The fact that he praised Murrell as a winner and can't think of a single reason why Sturgeon should have resigned only proves that he is totally clueless, unfit to lead the SNP and should go, or be removed. Irrespective as to the legality of the fund-raising appeals, there should still be an investigation into the causes of disrepute. Nicola Sturgeon was the leader of the party and actively promoted the referendum appeal in 2017, and also, as you can see here, in 2020. Given that she promoted these appeals as being ring-fenced and they were not, and also lies were told that donations had been ring-fenced, she obviously has questions to answer. I will highlight some of the awkward questions that Sturgeon needs to answer, but only some, because whilst an internal investigation would rightly look at issues that caused complaints to the police, this matter is sub judice. I shall restrict myself by only making the case that it was grossly negligent for Sturgeon not to investigate the matter and do nothing to stem the tide of damaging publicity. The reason there has not been an internal investigation is that its wider scope would ensnare Sturgeon by asking questions as to why the scandal was allowed to fester unchecked and damage the party so badly. Even though the entitlement does not apply here, I am using the standard required to discipline an employee for misconduct, and that is, culpability can reasonably be assumed on a balance of probabilities. June 2021 was the month the SNP came clean and admitted they had spent the supposedly ring-fenced donations. This headline was from a report made to the NEC and came after Sturgeon's June 3 STV interview, whereby she admitted the same. I will show that interview in full shortly. The point is, as that headline shows, Sturgeon knew in June 2021 that donations had been spent, and there was no ring-fenced fund. This admission means that Sturgeon, in June 2021, had full knowledge that the SNP had previously lied that there was a fund, both in statements to the media and emails to donors. Nicola Sturgeon failed to investigate the lies that had been told. With respect to lying to donors via email, it would be inconceivable in a normal business that lying to investors would result in anything other than those responsible being removed from the organization, and the head of organization also being removed if those responsible were not removed. So the first awkward question is to ask Sturgeon to explain why she took no action to investigate and discipline those responsible.
I'm not concerned about the party's finances. The finances of the SNP are independently audited. Our accounts are sent to the Electoral Commission in common with other parties and of course published, so there's full scrutiny around that. Money hasn't gone missing. All money goes through the SNP accounts, independently and fully audited. We don't hold separate accounts. We're under no legal requirement to do that. Our accounts are managed on a cash flow basis, but every penny we raise to support the campaign for independence will be spent on the campaign for independence. When I communicate, and I apologise if this is an error, okay? I kind of communicate at a level where I assume a certain level of intelligence on the part of people listening to me, because I think that's justified, and I assume a certain ability to attach context and common sense to what I am saying.
Nicola Sturgeon's explanation, that you just heard, as to the reasons why she is not concerned about SNP finances, does indeed assume a certain level of intelligence, and that level is that the listener is incapable of deciphering her obfuscation and lying. She assumes the listener will be unable to deduce, from what she said, that the SNP had been lying for years that there was a ring-fenced fund. Her strategy seems to have worked, because the media have never challenged her. Of course, it could just be that the media were happy to see her kept in situ, causing untold damage to the SNP and the independence movement. The background to Sturgeon's STV interview was that the existence of a ring-fenced fund had been questioned, over an extended period of time, by Wings Over Scotland. Also, a member of the public had made a complaint of fraud to the police, and there had been resignations, including a treasurer, from the SNP, all concerned about the SNP's finances. Her interview was the only time she has given any kind of detailed response to this scandal. The points she made looked very rehearsed. She very clearly asserts that the SNP did nothing wrong.
I'm not concerned about the party's finances. Money hasn't gone missing. All money goes through the SNP accounts. We don't hold separate accounts. We're under no legal requirement to do that. Every penny we raise to support the campaign for independence will be spent on the campaign for independence.
Her arrogant, bullish explanation was disgraceful. She knew donations, that she promised would be ring-fenced, had been used for cash flow, and there never had been a referendum campaign fund. Yet there was no hint of contrition, and no apology to donors. Any investigation would expect her to justify that stance, because it is shameful, severely damaging to the SNP's ethical image and not befitting for the leader of the party. Additionally, her disingenuousness and lying does nothing for her credibility and also causes disrepute. Her assertion that money hasn't gone missing, because the books have been audited, is disingenuous. It is a deflection, because she knows that what is being alleged is that what is missing is a ring-fenced fund on the balance sheet. If the fund is missing, then money is missing. Sturgeon would have signed off the 2017 balance sheet, so she knows for sure there was no fund, and less than £8,000 in cash. The auditors have certified these accounts, so we can be absolutely sure that there is no ring-fenced fund, nothing threaded through the accounts, and therefore all the donations received in 2017 were spent in 2017. Should there be an investigation into disrepute, it is likely the primary cause would be identified as the SNP's failure to establish a ring-fenced fund. Nicola Sturgeon's position, that she was not concerned about SNP's finances and her failure to investigate causes of disrepute, despite her certain knowledge that there never was a ring-fenced fund, would mean she would find it very difficult to defend a charge that her negligence brought the party into disrepute.
We don't hold separate accounts. We're under no legal requirement to do that. Our accounts are managed on a cash flow basis, but every penny we raise to support the campaign for independence will be spent on the campaign for independence.
So that was Nicola Sturgeon, shamelessly telling the lie that donations were for the all-encompassing purpose of a campaign for independence. At first, she is referring to how they treated referendum campaign fund donations, but then goes to explain in the same sentence that those same donations were really just for the all-encompassing purpose of a campaign for independence, and of course, that is a lie. And lying is a source of disrepute. So another question would be, why is she lying? I could explain why, but that would take me into matters that are sub judice, so I will just rest my case with these charges. She did nothing to address or mitigate the years of disrepute and loss of trust, due to lies being told that a fund existed. She herself has lied as to the purpose of donations. The party is suffering the worst scandal in its history and consequently is under threat politically and financially. These failures were gross negligence, and have had consequences so severe as to justify her expulsion from the party. The only way to restore trust is for the SNP to be seen accepting accountability for this scandal. They should make a commitment to refund donors and apologize. They should suspend, pending an investigation, anyone suspected of causing disrepute or breaching ethical standards. So tarnished is the current leadership that any investigation should be trusted to an outside body. The investigation should not be reliant on the outcome of whether criminal charges or convictions come about. Humza Yousaf has made a huge strategic and moral error by protecting Sturgeon. If he does nothing, he will see Sturgeon's house of cards collapse, and he will be finished. That's all for this blog. Thanks for watching.